Hello friends! So today I'm here to share with you all of the books that I read in the month of May. I read 13 books and I'm almost done with the 14th book. And I read no ebooks this month. I I think I've started like 3 or 4 this month and I don't think I finished even one. I haven't been in an ebook mood. I've liked holding the book in my hands. So let me share with you what I read this month. To start with, I read The One Real Thing by Samantha Young. This is book 1 in the Hearts Boardwalk series. This is about a woman who works at a women's correctional facility and finds this old letter from one of the inmates. Or she found multiple letters from one of the old inmates from way before she was there. And she feels a connection to this woman, so she goes to the town on the address that these letters were written to and never sent to try to find the man that this woman had written to, and she ends up she meets a friend who is the owner of the inn that she stays at, and she meets the owner of a bar who she falls in love with, and she decides to stay in the town to be with both of them. I rated this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. I don't think I liked it as much as Samantha Young's On Dublin Street or Fight or Flight, which I couldn't help but compare it to. I believe this one was written in between those series. I liked it, just not as much as those other ones. Next, I continued on with the Hearts Boardwalk series and read Every Little Thing, also by Samantha Young. This one is about the friend from the first one, the innkeeper. I guess you'd call her an innkeeper. She owns the inn in town where the girl from the first book stayed. Anyway, she has this kind of like hate relationship with this big city guy who has moved to town like even before the first book. And this is their romance of trying to come together so that the like bigwig of the town doesn't buy up the boardwalk. And while they're working together, they fall in love. I really enjoyed this couple in the first book, and I thought I was going to have to wait to get their story, so I'm really glad it was the second book. I did end up giving this one 4 stars. I believe the third one in the series just came out, but I don't have that one yet, so I have not continued on with this series, but I will as soon as possible. Next, I read Blush for Me by Kristen Proby. This is book 3 in the Fusion series. This is about, which one is she? Kat, the wine person in the group of friends that owns the restaurant/bar. And the other friends send her on a like wine retreat kind of thing. And she is terrified of flying. So the guy next to her on the flight kind of helps calm her down. They end up kissing and sharing like, what do they call it? A sexcation on the wine retreat because he ends up being there too. And then they come home and they don't think they're ever going to see each other again until he owns a wine touring company and he brings one of his tours into the restaurant and they kind of reconnect. I rated this one 4 stars. I have loved all of the books in this series so far. It's so good. It's an easy read. They're not too long. Just over 300 pages, so it's not too long. They're easy reads. I love them. Next, I read One Night Rodeo by Lorelei James. This is book I have no clue in the Blacktop Cowboy series. This one is about Celia and Kyle, who are both they grew up in the same town, but they are both out on the rodeo circuit. And after a drunken night in Vegas, they end up married. And then Kyle learns that he has inherited this land from the father that he's never known, that was around the town that they grew up in. So he convinces Celia, since she actually grew up on a ranch, to come help him learn how to be a rancher. And he asks to stay married while they're learning to run the ranch and everything. And over the course of, I believe it was summer and fall, they fall in love. And I rated this one at 3.5 stars because it seemed like it was a lot of time, but it was like not a long book. I would have preferred things to, I don't know, flow more naturally. It seemed a little bit rushed at points. That was really my only complaint about this. I did really enjoy it, and I have since continued on with this series, and I plan to continue on with the other books that I have in the series as well. The next 3 books are part of a serial series. I don't know what the actual term is, but that is the Laws of Physics series by Penny Reed. Book 1 is Motion. Book 2 is Space. And book 3 is Time. This is about Mona, who at the very beginning of book 1 gets a call from her sister who has, I think she's in jail. Something like that. Anyway, the sister needs Mona to go back to their home where Abram is house sitting and pretend to be her so that he doesn't tell the parents that she didn't come home. Even though that's a terrible idea, Mona does it because she's a people pleaser. And Mona and Abram kind of have a connection, but she doesn't ever tell him who she is. Book 2 is, I think it's 2.5 years, 3 years later. Abram is a rock star, and he and Mona kind of end up reconnecting because the brother brings him, I think it's like a cabin somewhere. And books 2 and 3 are them like reconnecting and figuring out how to balance, because she is a scientist and he is a rock star. I rate these individually on Goodreads, but I rate them like all together as the whole story, and I gave this one 4 stars. I liked this one better than I liked Elements of Chemistry. It felt more natural, less insta-lovey, and I liked this better. Next I read The Beauty of Us by Kristen Proby. This is book 4 in the Fusion series. This one is about Riley, who is the kind of business manager of the restaurant, who has this idea to bring in a film crew to do kind of a food documentary type thing on their restaurant. Riley ends up falling for Trevor, the producer of the TV show, and I gave this one, where'd it go on my list? I gave this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy this. I love this series, and I will be continuing on. I believe there's one more. There should only be one more because there's 5 friends. This is book 4. Should be one more. I will get it before Book Bonanza because I want to have the complete set for Kristen Proby to sign. Next I read Saddled and Spurred by Lorelei James. This is part of the Blacktop Cowboy series as well, but this one is actually before One Night Rodeo. I read them out of order. This one is about Bran and... what's her name? Bran and Harper. Bran is in desperate need of a ranch hand, and Harper is in desperate need of a job. So even though Harper knows nothing about ranching, Bran hires her to be his ranch hand, and sparks fly. Yes, they did. I rated this one 3.5 stars. Again, I really loved the romance. I really loved the story. I really loved the ranching. I just wish it had been a little bit longer it felt like to progress more naturally. It felt a little rushed. Next, I was trying to come up with my Smudathon TBR, and I had this book on there originally, and then one of the hosts, I don't even remember which one, said that it was more of an adult readathon, and this one is a YA, so I decided to read it then. And that is Crossing the Line by Simone Alcalis. It's about Ryan, who lives in a border town on the Texas-Mexico border, and he has a terrible stepfather and kind of a checked-out mother, so he runs away to Mexico to find this famous boxer who lives there, to get this famous boxer to train him, because all he wants to do is be a boxer. He ends up meeting Delilah, and she has some family issues. They start a relationship and then have to kind of go through all these family issues. There was the cartel, and I rated this one 3 stars. The way it ended, I didn't like. I didn't like the way it ended, and it's not like a bad. It's not a bad ending. It's just not the way I prefer my books to end. So, I gave this one 3 stars. It wasn't the ending for me. It wasn't the ending I wanted. Let me say it that way. It wasn't the ending I wanted. Next, I read my first ever historical romance, and that was Devil in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. I really enjoyed this, actually. I gave it 3.5 stars. This is about Lady Pandora, who ends up in a compromising position at, I guess it was like a ball. I don't know exactly what the terms are for historical romances. She ends up in a compromising position, and Gabriel, Lord St. Vincent, Gabriel, finds her and is trying to help her out of the situation, but they end up getting caught together on their own. So he feels like the only way for her family to not be, like, shamed for this is to marry her. So he and his family invite her and her family to their estate for a week, and this was kind of their progression of meeting, spending the week together, deciding that they will get married, that she does like him enough. And part of their conflict was that Lady Pandora is a businesswoman. She has patented a board game, and she does not want to get married because anything she owns of this board game company will go to her husband because of laws. And she is very against marriage for that reason, but Gabriel finds a way for her to still be in charge, even though his name is kind of on stuff. I really enjoyed that aspect. I think that's one of the reasons why I rated it 3.5 instead of like a 3, is that she was very determined to own her own business, and he was very determined to give that to her because that's what she wanted. And I really liked that. One of the things about historical romances that I was so scared of is that women don't have great history, and so I was worried that it was gonna all just be kind of the husband is in charge, and yeah. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed this. There were a couple of characters that I would be interested to see their story, so I may actually pick up more books in this series. After that, I read Misadventures with the Boss by Kendall Ryan. I don't believe you have to read the Misadventures series in order. I hope not, because this is like a ridiculous number of books. I did really enjoy this one. I gave it, where's that? I gave it 3.5 stars. Spoiler, there was an accidental pregnancy that I wasn't a fan of, but this is about Piper, who has just moved to New York City, and her sister ends up creating a online dating profile for her. And she goes on this date even though she doesn't think she wants to, and she ends up meeting this guy and hooking up with him. And then the next Monday morning, she ends up at her new job with Jackson, the guy from her date, being her new boss. She is his new assistant, and they continue on with their relationship, and then the spoiler thing happens, and she runs away, and he chases her down, and it was very good. It was very good. I wasn't a fan of the accidental pregnancy. Then I read The Good Luck Charm by Helena Hunting. Again, really enjoyed this. I really liked the Helena Hunting books that I've read so far. This one is about Lila, who is a nurse, and at the very beginning of the book, she finds out that the man she thinks of as a father has had a stroke and is in the hospital. When she goes to check on him, she ends up seeing Ethan, who is actually the man's son, and her ex-boyfriend, who dumped her when he became a professional hockey player. He has been traded back to the local team, or the hometown team, and he wants to reconnect with her. So they do, at first as friends, even though he's very much pushing for it to be more. And then it is more, and he does an interview where he basically says that he calls her his good luck charm, and that the reason he's playing so well is because of her. And she is not about that. She essentially breaks up with him and tells him he needs to figure out his talent on his own, figure out who he is by himself, because she doesn't want to be responsible for whether or not he has his career, because if he doesn't play well, they're not going to keep him. I gave this one 4 stars. I really loved this. I liked that it was very, like, she was a very realistic main character. I liked that she was like, I'm having none of being responsible for you and your career, and you need to do that on your own. Even if that means I don't get what I want, which is you've got to do it. Like, I can't help you with this. I really liked that. And finally, the book that I am currently reading, I have about 160 something pages left, and it's the last day of the month, so I'm gonna go ahead and count it because I don't want to keep it for the whole month of June, and my sister would probably kill me because I think she's ready for this book in the series. And that is King of Sword and Sky by C.L. Wilson, book 3 in the Terran Soul series. I do have a little bit more to go, but I'm loving this book. It's just, fantasy takes me so long to read. I am not a fantasy reader, and so, like, every time I pick up the book, I kind of have to get my mind back into the headspace of the world, and that takes me a while. But I will put on the screen somewhere what I ended up rating it, because I'm sure I will finish this before I actually edit this video. This is, like I said, this is the 3rd book in the Terran Soul series. They have gone back to the Terran Soul's, like, home, the Fading Lands, and I'm really enjoying that. It's the first 2 books were in her hometown in the city, and it was kind of getting a little bit old, I guess. So I'm glad that in the 3rd book, they switched it up and went to a new place. So those are the books that I read in the month of May. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!